Speaking of this, he was full of distress. I want to visit my father, but my father didn't know why. He didn't see me at all. Originally, Baorong Emperor didn't invite him, and he didn't plan to go again. But concubine Chen always asked for help again and again. Even if Baorong Emperor didn't let him, he had to go all the time. Liu Bohan's eyes turned around on King In, and his mind became more active. His Highness is now His Majesty's eldest son. How can your Majesty not see you? King In sighed and didn't tighten up. Not only our king, but also our other brothers, father and emperor, and our mother and concubine, father and emperor, also refuse to go. In addition to the 13 younger brothers, there are also the 5 younger brothers. My father has never seen us again. However, he was just worried, but he didn't feel jealous. Liu Bohan's shrewd eyes swept the king In's body. A thought suddenly appeared in his heart. He suddenly said with a smile, "Your Highness, it's not difficult to do this matter. I wonder if I have the honor to invite you to my house for a talk." King In looked at Liu Bohan suspiciously. Does Liu Xiang really have a way? However, at this time, I'm afraid that my mother's wife will blame me. This kind of soft nature is the best one to grasp. Liu Bohan was very happy and didn't reveal anything on his face. You can't tell Empress Chen about it first. Later, he told Empress Chen that His Highness doesn't need to mention the old minister at that time. He just said that it's your own way. Empress Chen will praise you more. As soon as the king's eyes brightened, he immediately settled the matter. According to the prime minister's words, Mo Shanghua originally thought that he would not have other things except to be bored in this palace, but did not think in the evening Xu Fei actually came to visit in person. A group of maids all saluted the lady, but the lady also wanted to salute. But the lady held her and told her, "You are a person with body now, so you don't have to salute." The flower on the street didn't have politeness either. She stood up straight and said, "Thank you for your consideration." Xu Fei chuckled, but the blood in her eyes and her haggard face were very clear. Mo Shanghua asked Xu Fei to come in and sit down. Then she said in a soft voice, "Brother Shizhen Huang's body can be taken good care of. Don't worry. You should take good care of yourself first, so that you can take good care of Brother Shizhen Huang. You see it." Xu Fei raised her hand and stroked her face, which could be covered with powder. She still forced her face to smile. "In fact, I've seen Xian'er's business for a long time. I can't blame anyone at all. If I want to blame it, I can only blame that when I'm pregnant with Xian'er, I didn't take good care of myself. I've been schemed by others, and Xian'er was born prematurely." As soon as she mentioned this, her eyes turned red uncontrollably, and her grief could not be concealed. Qingyu took a handkerchief to hand up, and the heart also quite sympathizes to in front of Xu Fei. Nyang Nyang is careful, don't want to cry bad eyes. Xu Fei is not the one who holds the airs. She smiles at Qingyu. "I'm fine. You don't have to be so nervous." Trying to suppress the grief in her heart, Xu Fei said with a faint smile, looking at the flowers in the street with concern, "I know you must be bored here alone, and I will often come to see you in the future." After a pause, he put his hand in the hand of Mo Shanghua and said in a warm voice, "I never thought of letting Xian'er sit in that position, and I know that you are miserable in your heart. Anyway, you should always be relieved. Don't think too much about it. Things outside have to be solved by men. You just need to have a baby at this moment." As soon as she spoke, the female official behind her brought up a lot of gifts and said with a smile, "Princess, it's all our Empress's intention. I hope it can relieve your depression." Mo Shanghua really didn't expect that Xu Fei was such a sincere and warm-hearted person. Her cold heart was moved. "I won't say anything nice, but I'm really moved now. Thank you, Xu Fei Nyang." Xu Fei gently held her hand, and her eyes were full of pity. "You're a good child. I'll never forget what you did for Xian'er. These are all right. I just hope you can be relieved now. Don't be so anxious to move your breath. By the way, I've got one more for you," Xu Fei said, turning to the female officer behind her. That female official immediately nods to go down. Don't have a short while. The Lu Zheng of a body imperial doctor official dress unexpectedly in that female official's lead entered the palace. Mo Xianghua looked at Lu Zheng in surprise. How can you come in? Lu Zheng took a look at Xu Fei and said with a smile, naturally, it's TOEFL for Xu Fei. In fact, there are many people's meanings in it. After a pause, he said, I mean something. In Yuzhou in the past, when I discussed medical ethics together. Now I owe all my achievements to you. Naturally, I should come to see you. It's not bad to say that. After chatting with Mo Xianghua, Lu's opinion on medical skills has been greatly improved. Since then, medical skills have naturally become more and more powerful. Now it's second only to flowers. A words let Mo Xianghua heart a little warm, bent up lip corners to smile. Thank them for me. She has always been cold-hearted and devoted to medical research in her previous life. How could she gain so many people's care in this life? How could she not feel warm in her heart? There will be, because of their own square-inch chaos, completely lost in the past decisive sharp Yanbei City, that will be in front of him like a person like Yanbei City. Everything let her originally cold heart, warm, incomparable. Seeing this, Lu Zheng took down the medicine box he was carrying and said, although you have everything here, you need to be very careful where you use medicine. I have met desire and brought some herbs to you. You can order someone close to you to cook them. Mo Xianghua takes it with a smile and gives it to Qinya when he arrives at Xie. In fact, only she knew that she did not want to drink medicine during pregnancy. It's quite hard for her to boil out the pill. In her opinion, everything should go with the flow. If it's not for special circumstances, she doesn't need to drink it. But in order to make Yin Beiqing feel at ease, she made her own prescription for the tocolysis medicine, but in fact, she poured it out secretly every time. However, in the face of other people's good intentions, she naturally will not shirk. Qinya knew this heart clearly, but she didn't break it. She accepted the flowers with a smile. A few people chatted a few words at will again. Xu Fei and Lu Zheng then left Chuxiu Palace. After all, the flowers on the street are forbidden, so they should not stay too long. Can this medicine really make me recover quickly? Yan Xinchuan looked at the medicine in Lu Liujing's hand and asked in a low voice. Lu Zheng looked down at the decoction in his hand and nodded gently, but it's not as fast as you think. At least it will take some time to look as usual. 10 days. Thinking of the situation outside now, Yan Xinchuan frowned slightly. It's the fastest. There's no other way. Lu Zheng sees this. Low voice reminds. Just 10 days, 10 days. Yan Xinchuan took the medicine with a bitter smile and drank it. This medicine seems to be more bitter than usual. When he drank it, he frowned from time to time. But even so, he did not stop at all. Anyway, he has to get better as soon as possible. My days in the palace are really boring. I eat and sleep every day. Mo Xianghua is pregnant now. She doesn't want to work hard and think about it. She simply believes in Yin Beiqing. Therefore, although these days are boring, it's much better to have a Xu Fei come to visit her from time to time. Qinya and Mo Ling can meet day by day, but there is no complaint. Even because the food here is quite good, but 3 days on the fat on a few pounds, so that Mo Xianghua often tease. Mo Ling then quietly raised his lips and looked at Qinya with a smile. After only 4 days, the imperial edict of Baorong Emperor soon arrived at Chuxiu Palace. But it was not the imperial decree of pardon that came, but the intention of imprisoning her in the patriarchal clan. Qinya's mellow little face suddenly changed. Princess, what's the matter? Isn't the prince always outside? How could that be? Every day, when Xu Fei came, she would bring Yin Beiqing's letter to relieve the pain of Acacia. At the same time, she would also tell the situation outside. Maybe Qinya didn't know his current situation, but she was not surprised. In recent days, the wind in the middle of the court seems to have changed. Liu Bohan has already loosened his mouth and asked Baorong Emperor to appoint a third prince. The third prince is stupid and incompetent, so Baorong Emperor naturally doesn't want to. The rest of the officials still supported Yanbei City and even knelt down in front of Yanbei City. Baorong Emperor's mind didn't seem to change because of Liu Bohan. He summoned Yin Beiqing several times, but he didn't see him at all. Yin Beiqing is really hard to deal with at the moment, and he is secretly preparing to solve the problem in the name of national teacher. Mo Shanghua knows everything, so she is not in a hurry. What she can do now is to take care of herself, so as not to distract Yin Beichen. Therefore, she accepted the imperial edict calmly, and then she was taken away by the guards and put into the imperial palace. Because she was pregnant, she got the best treatment in prison. Although it was a cell, except for a railing with thick arms, the furnishings and other things in it were similar to those of normal people. Only the royal family was in charge of the Zhongrenfew. So Qinya and Mo Ling were not allowed to enter, so they were driven out of the palace. Mo Shanghua wanted to settle down when she came, but when she glanced, she saw a rather unfamiliar face in the opposite cell. It's Lin Xiangyin. Lin Xiangyin has been locked up in the Zhongrenfew, so Yin Moli's affair didn't involve her. If we say the biggest disadvantage is that the Zhongrenfew is afraid that she will never leave this life. However, she seems to have thought about it for a long time. Her coat is much more tidy than when she first came to see her. Her black hair is simply pulled up with a wooden hairpin, and her cheeks are white but lifeless. I didn't expect to see you here in my lifetime. Lin Xiangyin saw the flowers on the street and looked over. Then she pulled her lips and gave a light smile. Mo Shanghua was not angry. He found a wooden stool and sat down for a while. He said faintly, 30 years of Hudong and 30 years of Hushi have come like this. Lin Xiangyin looked down at the coarse cloth on her body and looked at the strange flowers on the opposite side, although she was dressed in plain clothes, but the material was excellent. Her lips pulled out a smile of self-mockery. It's really 30 years of Hudong and 30 years of Hushi. When you were in most oppression, I was the apple of my eye and the favorite granddaughter of Donglin Hao. Now, I don't even have my grandfather. At this point, her empty eyes could not help but shed tears, full of sorrow, but no resentment. Mo Shanghua is silent. She can't say that she can't escape the relationship completely. Naturally, she has no right to comfort the woman who has lost everything. Lin Xiangyin didn't seem to need consolation. She wiped her tears and looked at the flowers on the street with her head tilted. Why did you come in? Did your husband feel ashamed of you? Mo Shanghua's lips slightly twitched for a moment, pondered for a moment, and then said, It's just that I've made your majesty unhappy. But Lin Xiangyin sniffed. If it's just like this, how can you be locked in such a place? However, it's good. At least you can have someone to accompany me. Thinking of this, she chuckled again. In the past few months, she has already defeated some of her nerves. Now, her style of doing things is quite different from before. Mo Shanghua stares at Lin Xiangyin for a while, only to feel that the woman's eyebrows and eyes are suddenly strange. She wants to say something, but she can't say it anyway. Are you guilty? Lin Xiangyin suddenly opened her mouth as if she saw what she was thinking. Mo Shanghua did not answer, just dropped his eyes. Lin Xiangyin didn't resent it. She just laughed sarcastically. Now I understand why you have such a big change. Now I've experienced it, but I don't blame you. Then she murmured, I'm blind. I fell in love with such a man. Do you know? When I knew that he was also locked in, I didn't worry. I think I finally jumped out now. Thank you, in fact. Thinking of this, she began to smile again. Mo Shanghua just quietly listened to her, did not interrupt, also did not because Lin Xiangyin and Feng Bento really feel that they are not wrong. Lin Xiangyin is not angry because of the silence of the flower. She just hasn't spoken for a long time. When she sees the flower, she can't help pouring out all the pain in her heart. By the way, I heard that my father was escorted back to the city. I don't know the news after that. Do you know? After telling her own voice, Lin Xiangyin said again. Speaking of this matter, Mo Shanghua can't help frowning. I didn't pay attention to it, I don't know it now. She only knew that after the capture of Donglin Hao, General Lin, who was far away in northern Xinjiang, was immediately taken military power and escorted back to Beijing, but she didn't pay attention to the news. Lin Xiangyin suddenly calmed down, buried her head in her knees, and kept silent. The flowers in the street don't even open their mouth. I can't. Please agree. The princess is pregnant now. How can she stay in such a place for a long time? Qinya knelt down and looked at Yin Beicheng with red eyes. Yin Beicheng had already learned the news, and he was also anxious, but the more he waited, the more he should hold his ground. As a result, he did not look at Qinya. Thin lips, cold voice words. Moling, take her down. But, Qinya wants to say something, but Mo Ling has held her hand. I'm leaving. Then he can't help breaking up and pulling Qinya down. No one else. The room for a time quiet down. Yin Beicheng whole face are taut tightly. Eyes look deep and unpredictable. Compared with the impulse of a few days ago, now he's calmed down a lot. Flower Thousand Willow at the moment also receives smile. See him like this way. Simply directly save small Mo Flower. You directly leave here back to Yujo is also born so troublesome. The South Crane suddenly glanced over. A face of hate, iron does not become steel. I do not know how many times this has been denied. If it is feasible, do not use you to say. Flower Thousand Willow, some impatient of grasp to grasp the forehead, front to stroke broken hair. This also can't, that also can't. Treasure Rong Emperor now also didn't swallow breath. This matter can how. Yin North City silent for a long time, suddenly lift eyes, dark eyes inside a quiet. If there is no way, then push others up. The South Crane slightly ponders, unexpectedly also nodded. If the Lord really does not want to succeed, then only then this method, only in your heart now, may have the suitable person. Maybe it's a retribution. The only one who is really outstanding in Baorong Emperor's son is Yin Moli and Yin Xuan. It's a pity that he has a vicious mind, a weak body, and then Yin Beicheng. It's a pity that he has never been interested in the throne. The rest of the princes were flat and submissive, unable to be used at all. It's really ironic to say that the person who didn't want the throne the most became the best candidate, which is ironic. Hua Qianlu smoothed the 2 threads of hair in front of her forehead, frowned and said, I've seen 1 or 2 of those princes, but even in the Qin Lu Chu Hall, they don't dare to speak aloud. How can they do that? I don't need to worry about whether I can do it or not. That is to say, the whole kingdom of God will fall under their hands in the future, which is less important than her. Yin Beicheng's eyes were deep, his lips were thin, and his voice was not emotional, but his hands were unconsciously tightened. Let alone a kingdom of God. That is, all the people in the world are less important than a stranger in his heart. Hua Qianlu and Nan He were silent when they heard the words. Hua Qianlu silently holds Nan He's hand, but this time, Nan He doesn't shake his hand away and let him hold it tightly. In one's life, it is not easy to meet a person who loves each other and keep each other. Lord, here comes Dr. Liu. Darkway's voice suddenly rang outside the door. Come in, please. Yin North City collected the emotion in the MOU. The facial expression has no mouth. As soon as the voice fell, the door was pushed open from the outside. Lu Zheng stepped in without ceremony and said, The 13th prince asked me to tell him that his body will soon recover. Let's be calm and don't act impulsively. Mo Shanghua's intuition is that Yin Beicheng can't wait until tonight. Sure enough, when it's ugly tonight, there's a vision. She had observed the movements of the prison guards, and they would come to inspect about every other hour. When it was dark, they would patrol for half an hour. Now it was time, but they were not there. Lin Xiangyin in the opposite cell has fallen asleep, and the candlestick is still on. There are many royal relatives and nobles in the Zhongren mansion, so they attach great importance to it. The candlesticks in the prison cannot be put out at night, in order to prevent accidents from being discovered in time. Everything around was quiet. Mo Shanghua quickly analyzes the surrounding situation, and her eyes stare at the direction of the prison door for a moment. Sure enough, but a moment later, the extremely light footsteps came from my ears, and 3 masked men in black suddenly appeared in front of the prison door. After they came in, they opened the cell door without saying anything. Mo Shanghua stood up alert. Silver needle has been quietly pinched in the fingers. Who are you? Those people seem to know that Mo Shanghua would ask like this. One of them saluted Mo Shanghua respectfully and said, My subordinates have been ordered by His Royal Highness King and to send the princess out of the city to meet with King Yu. On the other hand, the vigilance in the eyes of flowers on the street is increasing instead of decreasing. I have nothing to do with him. Why did he save me? The man in black had expected that the flower in the street would ask this question, and said, "The purpose of your highness is known by the princess as soon as she guesses. Why should we say more? Now, please get up quickly and come with us." No, it's a fraud. As soon as the man in black's words came out, the flower in the street noticed something wrong. She had seen Wang several times, submissive and mediocre, and could not do things as well as she did now. The flower heart on the street thinks a turn, and the heart already had probably. The lip cape gently stirs up. The way, "Good, I follow you to walk." As he spoke, the guard in his eyes had eased. The man in black who spoke immediately let the road open, let the stranger go first, and then another man in black walked in front to explore the way, put her in the middle in a protected position. Another man in black, after leaving the prison, did not know what his purpose was. He opened the prison door on Lin Xiangyin's side and stepped in. Lin Xiangyin woke up as soon as the door of the prison was opened. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw a man in black coming towards her. Her face turned white with fright. Just as she was about to shout, the man in black knocked her out with a hand knife, then picked her up and took her away. The flower on the street pressed down the suspicions in his heart. Yu Guang glanced at the figure of the man in black. He quickly took his eyes back and only looked away without interest. "Let's go." The prison guards of the patriarchal clan had been knocked unconscious. The flower on the street looked down and then looked away. She continued to follow the man in black. There was another man in black behind her, but she still took off a silver needle between her fingers. The silver needle's target was too small, and she didn't raise her hand. The man in black had to pay some attention to the movement around, which was not easy to find. Out of the mansion, a carriage had been arranged outside. The stranger and the unconscious Lin Xiangyin were put in the carriage, while the three men in black were driving the carriage outside. All the way, the flowers on the street did not open their mouth, nor did they wake up Lin Xiangyin, leaving the carriage to drive outside the city. When it was over, the gate had already been locked. When it reached the gate, the guards opened the gate directly and let them out of the city. The carriage finally stopped in a remote wilderness. It's no more modern here. Even at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, the lights are still bright outside. At this time, the carriage stops outside the wilderness. It's dark everywhere. It's no exaggeration to say that you can't see your fingers. It's as if you are blind and can't see anything. One of the men in black took a torch and looked at the other 2 men in black. Then he said, "Princess, it's here." As his words fell, 7 or 8 men in black, who were also masked, flashed around quietly. They all had long swords in their hands, and their eyes were fixed on the humble carriage in front of them. "What about King Yu? I want to see King Yu." And Mo Shanghua didn't get out of the car. Qingling's voice came from the carriage. The man in black, who was holding the torch, flashed a hint of sarcasm in his eyes and continued to say in a hoarse voice, "Naturally, you can see it when the princess gets out of the car." There was a long silence in the carriage, and no one answered. A man in black was suspicious. With the sign of the man in black holding a torch, he stepped forward and opened the car curtain carefully. I didn't think about it. The accident happened suddenly at this time. There was no flower in the carriage except Lin Xiangyin, who was unconscious. The man in black was still in doubt, but suddenly some powder fell from the sky in front of him. For a moment, he felt that it was poison. He covered his nose with his hand and retreated. But after a few steps, he fell to the ground and didn't know whether he was alive or dead. At the next moment, the whole person on the street would rush out of the carriage like an arrow away from the string. The rest of the people in black just wanted to meet them, but what they were facing was not a lethal weapon, but a poisonous powder that went with the wind. The poison powder was very fast, but in the blink of an eye, it could disperse within 2 meters around. The rest of the people in black came forward one by one, and the result was that they fell down one by one. But in the blink of an eye, there were only 4 of them, all holding their swords and daring to step forward. Mo Shanghua claps her hands and shakes the residual poison powder in her palm. She carelessly raises her eyes and looks straight at the man with the torch. General Lin, I didn't expect you to be here. The man in black was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes suddenly skimmed over the meaning of obliteration. How can you know my identity? Mo Shanghua looks at the man in black with light eyes. His voice is cold and casual. If it wasn't for today's Ling Ai who asked you where you are, I'm afraid I wouldn't think of you. Besides, you deliberately disguise your voice, your body shape is also deceptive, and your attitude towards Ling Ai is full of flaws. Speaking of this, she gently picked the corners of her lips and said, in fact, your voice has great flaws. I've never seen you before. Your deliberate disguise will only make you full of flaws. Tell me, what's your purpose? Why do you want to pretend to be the third prince? The flower on the street stands with a negative hand, and her eyes are cold and sharp, looking at the General Lin in front of her. General Lin pulled the black cloth off his face and finally showed a weather-beaten face. You are really a smart man. He looked at the flowers on the street and said, but he didn't say the words behind, and his lips pulled out a strange arc. The poison powder on Mo Shanghua's body is gone, and his eyes are a little wary. He touches his waist quietly, but what? General Lin didn't answer, just sneered, and then looked at another man in black. At the next moment, there were dozens of people in black in the quiet surroundings. Their momentum was different from the previous wave. The moment they appeared, they all rushed to the flowers on the street. She did not dare to be vague. She immediately drew out her soft sword and dealt with it wholeheartedly. But these people in black are obviously more difficult than those they met before. They don't fight with her to death at all. They just fight with her. If they're in danger of being hurt by her, they retreat quickly. It was obviously an attempt to drain her strength. Mo Shanghua understood the intention of these people, and her face became more dignified gradually. But when she was fighting, she had more worries, always subconsciously protecting her stomach, and was consumed in turn. But after a long time, her physical strength gradually declined. When people in black saw this, they looked at each other again, and then they pulled away. Suddenly, a big net made of coarse hemp fell from the sky and covered the flowers in the street. Mo Shanghua wanted to split it directly with software, but when the big net was getting closer and closer to him, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he quickly dodged to avoid it. It was only in front of my eyes that I could see clearly where the fishing net was made of coarse hemp. It was clearly interspersed with iron wire with barbed wire barbs. If it was netted, it would be seriously injured. She was rolling directly from the ground to avoid, just fell on the ground. The butcher's knife of the man in black cut at her again. She didn't care a lot, instantly jumped up. This was forced into the place where the iron net fell. The light embroidered shoes on her feet were pierced by the barb on the iron net, and the soles of her feet suddenly felt a deep pain. Dozens of swords pointed at her at this time. The center of the foot is the place where people gather their blood. At the moment, it is suddenly pierced, but in the blink of an eye, the blood is dripping at the foot. Mo Shanghua pinches the corner of his clothes and tries to hold back the pain. He looks at the General Lin, who has never taken his hand, who is behind the scenes. Today, some of these people's actions are clearly to know her habits. It is impossible for General Lin, who is far away from the border, to know and master her habits. General Lin sneered and said, "Youth and king, you have destroyed the foundation of the Lin family for 100 years, and my daughter has become like this. Naturally, I want you to have a hard time. However, before that, you are still useful." Voice just fell. A man wrapped in black slowly came out from the darkness, eyes ingy, cold, looking at the flowers trapped in the street. "Yin Moli, it's you." The flower eyes on the road are fixed to look at Yin Mo Li, who is standing on the side of General Lin, and his tone is especially affirmative. The light from the torch was dark and yellow. Half of Yin Mo Li's face was bathed in the dark. Half of his face was caged in the dark. The eagle's eyes were sinister and treacherous, just like a ghost climbing out of hell. "Don't worry about the flowers on the street." Yin Mo Li slowly hooked the corner of his lips. His voice was cold and gloomy. "You can't think about it well. I can still come out of Yin Mo Li, and I didn't expect you to have this day." As he spoke, he twisted his eyebrows and laughed. In the end, it's still thanks to Lu Xiang, your father. If he didn't think he was smart enough to control the third prince, I'd let General Lin take advantage of the loophole and secretly encourage the third prince to be a fool, and you wouldn't have the light of today. It's really funny, haha. Looking at his nearly twisted face, I'm a stranger. Shanghua had no emotion on her beautiful face. She said with no expression, "You want to use me to coerce Yanbei City, but your emperor dream is still alive." This sure calm appearance actually stimulated Yin Moli. His face sank down fiercely and stared at the flowers on the street viciously. "I think that's what I think, so what? Do you think you can escape my palm now?" "No. I tell you, I don't just want to blackmail you. I want your husband and wife to die." Mo Shanghua's hand covering her belly is slightly tightened, and her lips are white. "My father has not closed his eyes yet. If you do this, no courtier will recognize you." On the face of it, I have been secretly calculating the time in my heart. Yin Mo Li extremely rampant smile. Directly in front of the mountain, a pinch Mo Shanghua's slender neck. "Things up to now, you still dare to talk like this in front of me. Do you believe I immediately want your life?" With that, she lifted her whole body from the ground with a little force in her hand. Originally adapted to some of the soles of the feet were forced to chase out from the barb, coupled with the neck almost suffocating force. Let the Mo Shanghua face quickly pale down. Even at this time, the people in black around them still did not dare to neglect and withdraw. They were all wary of raising their swords around, breathing more and more thin. Mo Hua's pale face gradually turned purple, but Yin Mo's lips became more and more curved, and his smile became more and more rampant. "I'm really curious. If Yin Beicheng saw you like this, would he be willing to let him kneel down? I hear you're pregnant." After a pause, his eyes were on the belly of the flower again. Clearly already in such a desperate situation, Mo Shanghua is still trying to keep himself sober. Yin Mo Li is still relaxed and complacent, but he doesn't know where he comes from. He pinches a few silver needles between his fingers and stabs Yin Mo Li under his armpit. When Yin Mo Li was in Zhongrenfu, his mentality was distorted and he had no internal power. Naturally, his movements were extremely insensitive. He was stabbed in the armpit without checking for a moment, and suddenly he had no strength to let her go. Mo Shanghua seizes the opportunity and ignores the moment when he falls to the ground to avoid the barb. He kicks Yin Mo to the ground with one foot, and then the whole person pours on him. He presses his knees against his chest, making him unable to move. He clenches his fist with the other hand and holds a few silver needles between his fingers directly on his neck. A series of actions completed, but blinking time. It's also to restrain Yin Mo Li. She coughed a few times uncontrollably. Her face turned purple because of lack of oxygen, gradually recovered, but she was still very pale. Even so, she didn't dare to relax. Yin Mo Li now has no internal power and is killed directly by Mo Shanghua. A handsome face is a twist. The flower on the street coldly coagulates Yin Beicheng, who has no resistance at this time. The pain on the sole of his feet doesn't seem to exist. His pale lip tears out a touch of irony. "Your Highness has eaten too much in the prison of the patriarchal clan, and now his hands and feet are soft. Even I can't resist it." Yin Mo Li's eyes at the flowers on the street were almost angry, and his handsome face was twisted. "What are you still doing? You still don't want to take down this enchantress." However, his master's life is in the hands of Mo Shanghua. How dare people in black move? General Lin also immediately raised his hand. His face was still calm. "Don't do it for the moment. Don't worry about the king, or you'll fight to death. You must also kill this monster." At the moment, Yin Mo Li's state of mind has been completely distorted, even regardless of his own life and death. Extremely crazy mouth. Even General Lin was surprised by his words. "No, Your Highness, you must be calm. He Lin family also hopes to use Yin Mo Li to recover. He naturally won't let Yin Mo Li have an accident." Mo Shanghua raised his eyes and looked at General Lin. Although his face was the same gloomy, he still had a good appearance. His heart was slightly heavy. I'm afraid this person is more difficult to deal with than Yin Moli, who is almost crazy now. The most important thing for her now is to delay time. As soon as he thought about it, General Lin looked at her and said, "Princess Yu, all you have now is just a battle of trapped animals. Even if you really kill your highness, you can't escape here. Not only you, but also your children will be involved. If you cooperate with us and release your highness, we will naturally release you." Oh, the flower willow eyebrows on the street gently stirred up, lifted the eyes, and looked at the General Lin with a smile. Is the matter settled? Is it settled after His Royal Highness Ling Wang sits on the throne? At that time, I'm afraid my life can't be saved. On the tongue, Imo Shanghua will never lose to anyone. Of course, she is also the most able to use the words of the situation. Seeing General Lin's words, she said directly, "General Lin, I know your real purpose of following Yin Moli, and I know what you think now. You hate me to the bone, and you don't have to pretend anything in front of me. I just want to tell you that if I have something, you won't be easy to rescue me. My daughter will be buried with me." At this point, she gently raised her lips and looked straight at General Lin. "Why do you think such a big movement makes love stay in the carriage all the time?" "Naturally, thanks to my poison powder. You General Lin's only weakness now is Lin Xiangyin." At the moment, he suddenly hears the words of Imo Shanghua. His face suddenly changes, and his eyes are full of evil. It's better to see than to hear. You are really a poisonous woman. The wound on the center of the foot seems to have coagulated, no bleeding, and the pain has also been alleviated. Mo Shangwang smiles and pushes the silver needle towards Yin Moli's neck again. I'm a poisonous woman naturally. Otherwise, how can I live? Yin Moli's neck fingertip has already Chinshu a bead, eyes staring at the flowers, full of hate. He wished he could kill the woman right now, but he didn't know why he suddenly lost his strength and had no room to resist. "Bitch, let go of me." Yin Moli's chest heaved violently. He could only use words to scold him. The flowers on the street drooped their eyes and looked at Yin Moli with pity. I didn't expect that His Royal Highness Ling, who used to be so rich and handsome and strategizing, would be reduced to such a situation now, and the same woman would yell at him. Yin Moli blushed. Even if he was so clamped by the flowers on the street, his body was still shaking uncontrollably, and he couldn't say a word anymore. I don't know why she began to feel dizzy again. Imo Shanghua bit her white lip. The pain made her sober again. She picked up her spirits and looked at General Lin. In fact, all my actions are out of self-protection. If I am safe in the end, my love will be safe. General Lin only needs to understand this truth. His mind became more and more confused, and it seemed that a large number of horses' hooves were trampling on the ground. He could not hear what General Lin said. The strength of his hand was also relaxed subconsciously. Seeing this, a man in black quickly overturned the flowers on the street with the help of General Lin. Imo Shanghua only feels dizzy. Even if someone attacks her, she has no consciousness of resistance. She just instinctively protects her abdomen with 2 hands. After rolling twice on the ground, she has no consciousness. "Mor." A nearly torn voice suddenly rang out, with a huge anger and heartache, and then saw a man's body like flying, blinking to the flowers on the street, a delicate person rolling on the ground carefully into his arms. Mor. Yin Beiqing patted Imo Shanghua's cheek carefully, but she didn't respond. As soon as she swept her eyes, she put her bloody feet into her eyes. The fierce killing intention in her eyes suddenly poured out of her eyes, which could not be controlled at all. Yin Moli. His eyes directly fell on Yin Moli, who was slowly getting up. It seemed that the fierce killing intention in his eyes had sent him to hell. Only one look from a distance would make people feel cold all over. Qin Lin, who came with Mo Jiang, was also annoyed to see this scene. He went directly across Mo Jiang and gave an order, "Immediately arrest all these people." Mo Jiang silently looked at Yin Beiqing, who was about to crack his canthus, and Qin Lin, who was red-eyed by his side. He just said, "Keep alive." At the moment, the 2,000 Imperial Guards were all following behind. It was natural for them to capture the dozen people in front of them alive. They responded with a powerful voice and quickly stepped forward. But in an instant, they surrounded Yin Moli and others. They were stacked in layers like iron barrels. "No need." Yanbei City suddenly raised his eyes and took the flower carefully to the carriage over there. Then he took the sword in Qin Lin's hand and walked slowly towards Yin Mo, looking at Yin Beicheng. Yin Mo Lizi was not afraid, even distorted and laughed. "Yin Beicheng, you would be so angry if you tormented her. If I had known that, I would torment him for a few more hours. Ha 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 ha." His words were so arrogant that he completely forgot that he was pressed on the ground by a stranger. It's the way you look. Lin, General Military, just wanted to escape, did not come and escape. Now see this situation, quickly pulled Yin Mo Li. "Your Highness, quickly shut up." "Shut up? Why should I shut up?" Yin Mo Li is now as crazy as a general, full of sinister distortion. "In any case, I am the prince. The father has not closed his eyes. It is difficult for him to dare to kill me." "He can't kill you. But how can we be so lucky?" General Lin's face turned black, his eyes turned quickly, and he thought quickly in his heart. "Your Highness, this matter is the third prince's mastermind. The last general is only acting according to orders. Please take it lightly." General Lin thought about it again and again, but he didn't care about his old face, so he knelt down with his clothes. However, Yin Beicheng didn't listen. He took his sword to Yin Moli and then put it across his neck. Yin Mo Li's blood bead on his neck, which was needled by the flower silver on the street, has not gone down yet. At the moment, Yin Beicheng is still laughing wildly. "Yin Beicheng, how can you really dare to kill me?" From the beginning to the end, Yin Beicheng didn't say anything. His pretty face was as tight as a demon, but his killing intention never abated. Just as his strength was about to burst out, Yin Moli, who had been laughing so much that he didn't care about it, suddenly let out two in his hand, aiming at Yin Beicheng's eyes. Yin North City reaction is only faster than he dodges, and the hand longsword straight marry Yin Mo Li's key. At this time, Yin Mo Li was not as arrogant as he had just been. Instead, he began to avoid seriously. However, he now has no internal power, but Yin Beicheng's internal power seems to be better than others. But between the two moves, he has been steadily suppressed. Then, in the dismay of the twilight, Yin Beicheng did not hesitate to stab Yin Moli's abdomen with his sword. As usual, Yin Moli might be able to escape. Today, he was much slower. He was stabbed by Yin Beicheng and spat out a mouthful of blood. He covered his belly and fell to the ground. Yin Beicheng threw the bloody sword directly on the ground and told him without expression, "He can't die for a moment. He'll break his tendons and throw it into the wilderness." Finished saying, then directly jumped into the carriage, while Mo Shanghua carefully in his arms. Eyes, gentle love. "Mo, son, with this king in, you will be okay." As for Lin Xiangyin, who was still in a coma on one side, he did not move her and let her lie there. As for Qin Lin and others outside the carriage at this time, they were extremely shocked. They didn't expect that Yin Beicheng could do such a thing for Mo Shanghua. He really spoiled her to the bone. As for General Lin, looking at Yin Moli, who was still struggling and unwilling, he suddenly knelt down in the direction of the carriage and said, "Please take good care of my daughter, and Lin will die without regret." Now surrounded by thousands of troops, if captured this time, I'm afraid there's no way to survive. Maybe it will also affect the daughter who has just been rescued. General Lin has no hope at all. After pleading, he picks up the sword on the ground and cleanly wipes his neck. Yin Mo Li covered his bleeding abdomen. It was painful, but he was crazy with a smile, and his eyes were completely blank. This time, I'm afraid I'm really crazy. When Mo Shanghua wakes up, the first thing he sees is Yin Beicheng with a tired face and a thick shadow under his eyelids. As soon as his eyes are swept aside, South Crane Chinya is also here. Two men, Hua Qianlu and Qin Lin are also guarding the table beside him. Lu Zhengzheng goes to urge him to cook the medicine himself. As far as you can see, it's all concern. Mo Shanghua's cold heart is infused with warmth. But the problems she is most worried about at the moment are not these. At the thought of her baby, she was frightened and nervous. Subconsciously, she raised her hand to cover her abdomen, and her cold face was in a panic. Yin Beiqing busily put Sheeta's hand on her plain hand and passed the temperature of her palm to her. I'm here, so are the children. Everything has been disposed of. You don't have to worry. Mo Shanghua's pale lips gently pursed, the palms slightly tightened. I almost lost him. Yin North City hard of pain, holding the hand of Mo Shanghua tight a few minutes. As far as possible, put the voice more gentle. No, there will never be this day. I will always protect you. Qinya also went forward with red eyes and comforted softly. Princess, don't say anything silly. You and the child are all well. Nanha also slowed down his voice and said with a smile, he's strong and tight. Now he's lying in your stomach. The haze between the eyes on the street just dissipated. She pulled her lips and laughed. She was about to get up with her hands on the bed. This body was immediately involved in the wound on the center of her feet. She could not help but hiss in pain. Yin North City, immediately full-face nervous, put her carefully back on the bed. You can't get up now, you must rest assured. Seeing him like this, Mo Shanghua couldn't help laughing again. Then he suddenly thought of something. His smile narrowed a little and said, How is Lu Xiang now? She didn't care about the life and death of others, but just wanted to know what happened to the person behind the incident who once again hurt her so father. Mention this matter. Yin North City, Yutong, suddenly a cold. The evidence of this matter I have packed up all sent to your majesty in front. He naturally should handle impartially. Mo Shanghua pulled the corner of her lips, and her eyes were slightly ironic. She's the prime minister of the dynasty. How can she move so easily? As long as you don't blame me, I will get justice for you. Yin Beicheng looked down at her with lingering eyes and gentle voice. The flower on the street pursed her lips and then lightly laughed. I'm no longer her daughter, and now I'm so hurt, so I won't be merciful. The whole process of Yin Moli's affairs was handled by Ma Jiang. According to Yin Beicheng, after the disposal, he reported it to Emperor Baorong on the ground that Yin Moli had escaped and disappeared. Emperor Baorong was very disappointed with his son and immediately ordered the whole city to search for him. As for the death of General Lin, there was no wave. But the third prince and Lu Bohan are not so easy to get rid of this time. Yin Beicheng took care of everything on the side of Mo Shanghua. Then directly in the presence of Emperor Baorong and his ministers, he broke the conspiracy between Lu Bohan and King Yin. King Yin begins to promise Lu Bohan that their plot is to send the flowers out of the city. However, they are bewitched by General Lu and leave the matter to him. General Lu just wants to save his daughter and recover Lu's family. Before they enter the imperial city, they escape from prison. They meet Yin Moli quietly and cooperate with Yin Moli to do such things. It killed so many people, and King Yin was extremely timid. However, Yin Beicheng was scared in front of all the ministers in the court hall, and then he was scared to death, and he recruited all he knew and did. Emperor Baorong was furious. This time, Lu Bohan was doomed. However, Lu Bohan had been in the imperial court for many years and had a large number of followers, which could not be eliminated overnight. Therefore, the matter had to be shelved for the time being, and he was only temporarily imprisoned in the prime minister's office. King Yin didn't have such good luck. He was directly demoted from the prince to the princess and was temporarily put under house arrest in the palace. Even Chun Fei, who didn't know about it, was innocent and locked up again. Seeing this trend, the ministers in the court were more and more determined to establish Yanbei City as the reserve. The most serious injury of Mo Shanghua is her feet. There is no injury on her body. The child in her abdomen is as strong as Nana said. There is really nothing. She was used to suffering from pain, so when she woke up, she couldn't stay in bed. Anyway, she had to get up and go to the prime minister's residence. The Prime Minister's residence is a place that everyone can avoid now, but Imo Shanghua is so determined to go. Yin Beicheng thinks for a long time and accompanies her to the Prime Minister's residence in person. Along the way, Imo Shanghua's feet did not touch the ground, but wherever she needed to walk, Yin Beicheng carried her. Imo Shanghua was rather shameless about it. He protested with Yin Beicheng several times, but he didn't want to give up. Regardless of the different eyes of the people, he took her into the Prime Minister's residence. Now Liu Bohan, who is temporarily locked up in a mansion, is bent over and worried about this situation. His daughter is holding King Yu firmly in his hand. In this way, maybe he can get out of trouble. However, even if there was no Yinbei city, relying on his students alone was enough to keep his family property. Yin Beicheng ignored Liu Bohan's view and thought of himself. He only lowered his eyes and asked in a low voice, "Do you want to sit down again for a while?" Imo Shanghua put his hands around Yin Beicheng's neck with a reddish cheek on his head and tried to speak in a flat tone. "Liu Xiang, I just came back to see my mother's memorial tablet." Liu Bohan repressed his inner thoughts and raised his eyes in surprise. "What does the princess want to do?" At last, I didn't show a father's attitude. Imo Shanghua, and to see him squint of the mouth. "Naturally want to burn incense for my mother. By the way, also asked Liu to go with me." Liu Bohan at the moment in the heart did not give up the idea of flowers on the street. Naturally, there is no reason to refuse, immediately said, "Nature should be so. Prime Minister." This let people prepare to take the princess. He was held by Yin Beicheng all the way to the ancestral hall. Imo Shanghua pointed to a futon and said, "You can put me here first, and then wait for me outside. I will come out soon." Yin Beicheng nodded slightly, carefully put the flowers on the futon, and Yutong settled on Liu Bohan for a moment. Liu Bohan, suddenly cold all over, busy drooping his head. "Your Highness, rest assured, Prime Minister will take good care of the princess." Although the main reason why he has come to this stage is because of Yin Beicheng, even so, Yin Beicheng's eye-catching sight is still frightening. However, in order to survive, he can only be so respectful. Imo Shanghua adjusted her posture, knelt on the futon, raised her eyes, and looked at the memorial tablets in front of her. Her eyes only stayed on the memorial tablets of her biological mother. Previously, Liu Qianqian's self-directing and self-acting brushed all these tablets to the ground, and the ashes of the tribute fell to the ground. On that day, Liu Bohan glared at her, even did not patronize her as a princess, and wanted to punish her with family law in public. Today, things are quite different. When she worships here, Liu Bohan can only be accompanied respectfully, and his words are beyond half. However, these are not the most important. Imo Shanghua gently spits out a mouthful of turbid air and bows down to the memorial tablet of the original owner's mother. After bowing, she bends down again and again, bows 3 times in a row and straightens up. In fact, to be honest, she came to worship for the original lord. She took over the identity of the original owner, and now she has avenged the original owner, so it's time to tell her mother. There's still 1 or 2 worships. At that time, Liu Qianqian made a big scene here and made amends for her. Seeing the sincerity of Hua Bai, Liu Bohan could not help sighing. Your mother's life is thin. If you know that you can be as good as you are now, you will be very happy. In a word, he unconsciously put on his father's superior appearance. Is Liu Xiang joking? Did not want to, on a second, also a face of devout flowers, but cold voice, not because of his words moved. Liu Bohan's face was stiff. Before he could react, he listened to her and continued. If my mother knew that her daughter, who cherishes treasure, had suffered these things after her death, would she be happy? What's more ridiculous is what a ridiculous father her daughter has. After knowing her injustice and identity, what she wants is how to use her identity to seek benefits for herself. After a pause, her voice suddenly cooled down like ice. What's more ridiculous is that this man in his father's skin still refuses to let go after his daughter is pregnant. In this case, even his grandson's life is wasted. All the dirty things were exposed on the spot. Rao was the only two of them. Lu Bohin still felt that he couldn't hold on to his face and couldn't help saying, "I never thought of taking your life. What happened with General Lin was done by King and behind my back. I didn't know it." Mo Shanghua chuckled and stood up regardless of the wound on her foot. She looked at Lu Bohin with her eyes straight. "If you didn't have a heart of utilization, how could you be found flaw? In addition, you dare to say in front of my mother with a clear conscience, when I just entered the mansion, you didn't have any idea of using me to get out of trouble." He tried to find some words to explain. He couldn't say a word to the icy cheek of the flower on the street, the memorial tablet of her mother, and the memorial tablet of the ancestors. Mo Shanghua looked back at the memorial tablet of the original owner's mother and said, "Lu Bohin, you are a husband, but you can't protect your wife all your life. I'm sorry for your wife who has worked hard all your life. As a minister, you can't be loyal. I'm sorry for Lu's honesty. As a father, you are cold and mean to the extreme. You have no benevolence when you make use of it several times. There's no merit at all in front of Lu's ancestors." Mo Shanghua's accusation seemed to have played a role in Lu Bohan's heart, which made him silent. This passage was repeated in his heart, and it was in front of the tablets of the ancestors. He felt a sense of shame in his heart. He knelt down uncontrollably, looked up at the tablets of the ancestors, looked at the tablets of the original mother, and tried to explain, but still couldn't say a word. Mo Shanghua is right. He is a selfish, indifferent, cruel, unfaithful, and unfilial man. However, he has been struggling in power all these years and has already lost his original intention. I'm afraid that after the new emperor takes over the throne, there will be no place for him in the court. This is why he has made many moves. He just wants to continue to control the court and even the new emperor in the future. Mo Shanghua looked at Lu Bohin kneeling on the ground, his eyes and eyebrows condensed. "Lu Xiang, in fact, what I am most curious about is, after 100 years, do you have the face to meet these people?" The words of Mo Shanghua successfully lead to some memories of Lu Bohin, his wife, who died only 1 year, and his honest and loyal father, make his dirtiest heart feel as if he had been struck by lightning. The more he thinks about it, the more he feels guilty. Mo Shanghua quietly looks at Lu Bohin kneeling on the ground. His face shows his regret for the first time. His voice suddenly drops. "When you are this old, you have a lot of wealth, and others may never get the power. Why not be satisfied? No matter how much you want, you still have to go to hell after death. You are not qualified to see Lu's ancestors again." He said, "Lu Xiang, although you have great power in the court, no matter who the new emperor will be, a once disloyal minister will never get any reuse and will be regarded as a thorn in the eye. Take care of yourself." She won't take Lu Bohan's life, and she won't fight him. She just asked him for the original owner and his mother. However, this is only the last time. From then on, if Lu Bohin wants to use her, she will not be soft-hearted. Yin Beicheng has been guarding not far from the gate of the ancestral temple. At the moment, he saw that Mo Shanghua had come out by herself. He quickly stepped forward and picked her up again. Mu Lu scolded, "How did you come out by yourself? If you want to come out, just shout, and I'll go in and hold you." The flower on the street is hidden to the cold meaning of anger in the eyes just now, and smiles at him. "I've already told you that my foot injury is not a big problem. You can walk on your own." Yin Beicheng was dignified. "I also told you that no matter it's serious or not, you can't go to the ground by yourself. Otherwise, the wound will split again. I'll see for you when I get into the carriage," said, the foot step bigger and lighter. "Just want to quickly return to the carriage." Good for Mo Shanghua, check injury. Mo Shanghua simply does not retort. She leans her head against Yin Beicheng's arms and smiles. She was very glad that she met such a husband. At this time, Lu Bohin in the ancestral hall. The words of the flowers in the street are like sharp blades, directly dissecting all his dirtiest places without leaving any feelings. And those are the faces he has always ignored and never admitted. Maybe when someone died in front of him because of his plan, he could still not see any waves on the surface. But in front of his ancestors, He could not say with a clear conscience that he had never done anything to be ashamed of his ancestors, his wife and daughter, or the king. He is really a disloyal, unfilial, and unrighteous man. Liu Bohan looked up at many memorial tablets, and some of them slumped down with deep wrinkles and gullies on his face. The incident between King In and Liu Bohan brought great stimulation to Baorong Emperor. That night, Yangxin Hall called Liu Zheng to the palace for treatment, and the palace was busy again because of Baorong Emperor's affairs. Mo Shanghua is pregnant, and her feet are seriously injured. She doesn't have to go there at this time. But Yin Beiqing's heart is not far away, and she still has to go to the palace. Yin Sichuan's body is bedridden, so she can't go, except for the two of them. Many concubines and the rest of the palace went to Yangxin Hall under the guidance of Xu Fei, and all the other princesses and princesses went to Yangxin Hall. From late at night to daytime, Yinbei City never came back. The palace is very busy, but there's only flowers on the street here, especially quiet and complacent. As soon as you wake up in the morning, there's a soup breakfast prepared by Qinya. All the meals are the best. Nanha also came to visit Mo Shanghua in the morning. Now, she doesn't have to do things in secret. Now Yin Beiqing doesn't need them to interfere in the affairs of court. She naturally feels relaxed and complacent every day and comes to visit Mo Shanghua when she's free. However, Qinya thought privately that this Lady Nan, no, it should be Nana girl. She came to eat and drink. Mo Shanghua looks at Qin, you standing on one side, and her eyes staring at the food. She can't help laughing. Qinya, there's no outsider here. You're still stuck with something. Just sit down. After a pause, he deliberately lengthened his voice and said, this is the last time I asked. If you still don't eat, I can't help it. Qinya saw so many delicious food in front of her eyes. Yin Beiqing spared no effort to find a cook who could make the most pregnant women's meals from the best restaurants in the Kingdom of God. Although it was specially for pregnant women, it was even more delicious than that regulated by Princess Hua. Nana has flowers every day, and Qianlu makes her happy. Now she is much more relaxed in front of the flowers in the street. Seeing her laughing and teasing, I just told you that you don't want to be on both sides. Now your saliva is almost flowing down. Qinya is not shy, and no matter whether Nanha is present or not, she smiles at Hualu teeth on the street and makes it. She puts a crystal meat bag in her mouth and says vaguely, I've been enduring it for the sake of the princess's face, but you don't care. I'm not polite. With that, he extended his chopsticks to the egg soup in front of Nanha. Nanha let the egg soup out with a smile and joked, Sister Mo, your little maid used to be quite disrespectful to me. Now I have given up my arms and surrendered. I think it's better to punish her to stand aside. The stranger knew that she was only teasing, and she was in a good mood, so she made a face and said, Qinya, since you were so disrespectful to Nana girl, please stand aside. Qinya's mouth hasn't been swallowed yet. Hearing the words, she suddenly stares and nearly chokes herself. Hard to swallow food in the mouth. Just looked at the flowers on the street with a full face of grievance. Princess, I know I'm wrong. The flower on the street can't stand laughing anymore, so she laughs. Nanha is also involved in the corner of his lips, laughing and joking. Sister Mo, I didn't see that you were so funny before. In order to eat anything, if not, I would have asked her to come directly and stay beside me to tease her. Qinya then realized that they were trying to tease themselves, and she was not afraid of it. She immediately snorted. According to the situation of that day, if you ask the princess for me, I will poison you 10 times and 8 times a day. Mo Shanghua put the steamed egg in front of Qinya with a smile and said angrily, You can't stop eating. As soon as Qinya saw what she had eaten, she couldn't remember anything. She said immediately, If you don't tell me, I'll eat well. A few people that tease is a burst of light smile again. Just at this time, a maidservant suddenly rushed forward to the stranger flowers after the ceremony, said, Return to the princess. The day before yesterday brought back Miss Lin, suddenly said to see you. It must be Lin Xiangyin. In fact, if it was not for the maidservant to come, the The flowers in the street might have forgotten the existence of Lin Xiangyin. In fact, Yin Beiqing took good care of her these days. She was not allowed to interfere any time, so she forgot about it for the time being. Now, she remembered Lin Xiangyin and said, "She was in the mansion the day before yesterday. Who ordered her to be taken care of?" The maid stood with her hands down, respectful. "It's the Lord who ordered her to come down, but Miss Lin lives in a remote place. There's been some noise these 2 days, and the Lord didn't let you back. Bring her here." Mo Shanghua thought about it and said to the maid, "Yes." The maid went back to England. South Crane, this just eyes due surprised of sea toward Mo Shanghua. She in the mouth of girl Lin is who? Why are they brought back by the Lord? Qinya didn't understand who Miss Lin was, and now she looked at her curiously. Mo Shanghua put down his chopsticks for a while and said calmly, "It's Lin Xiangyin, the princess of Yin Moli." South Crane also put chopsticks, eyebrows tightly up. "Why do you want to bring her back? She's here. What if Yin Moli has another accident there? What's more, she was taken into custody by the Zongrenfew. If she rashly appeared outside, she would be regarded as a fugitive." Nanha, too, clenched his fist and said, Princess Ling has framed you before. You're not asking for trouble. If she bites you back, it would be bad." Mo Shanghua is very calm, as if the matter is not worth worrying about in general. "I have my own opinion. You don't have to worry." Qinya thought about it, wiped the grease on her mouth, and stood up. "Lin Xiangyin lives in a remote place, but fortunately this house is not big. She is led by her maidservant in a short time. The coarse cloth on her body has been changed, and she has put on the brocade prepared for her by the maid in the house. However, she seems to have been used to plain and pure, and she no longer pursues the gorgeous and charming appearance of the past. Even the brocade is still the plain brocade." What makes Mo Shanghua even more surprised is that Lin Xiangyin, the maid, has been crying the past 2 days and tomorrow. But when she meets Mo Shanghua today, she is clean, quiet, and clever, and her former arrogance and pride are no longer there. Even Qinya was surprised to see it. She wondered whether this clever woman was Lin Xiangyin. Sister Mo Lin Xiangyin didn't call Yin Mashang's sister-in-law, but called her as if she hadn't married. "Sit down, please." She was so polite that she would not be embarrassed by the flowers on the street. She nodded and asked her to sit down for a while. Lin Xiangyin sat down obediently and said thanks in a soft voice. Then she said, "I just have some questions to ask you." At the moment, she was very careful and knowledgeable, as if she was the same as Lin Xiangyin, who was full of misery and despair. Mo Shanghua was a little surprised at her change, but she didn't ask much at last. She opened her lips slightly and said, "I know what you want to ask. I can tell you clearly that your father really saved you that day. It's just that your father's guilt is too heavy and he has already committed suicide. Now Yin Moli is also living in exile and has no news." Qinya told her the news one by one after the event. However, when it comes to Yin Moli's there, she still hides something. It's not guilt, it's just that Lin Xiangyin used to love Yin Moli so much, I'm afraid she can't accept it. However, Lin Xiangyin's performance surprised Mo Shanghua. When she heard the news of her father's death, she didn't react too much. She just shivered a little, bit her lips tightly, closed her eyes, and didn't cry as she imagined. At this time, not only the flowers on the street, but also Qinya was surprised at her performance. And he didn't know Lin Xiangyin's former temperament. He just thought that she was strong, so he handed her his handkerchief. Lin Xiangyin said thanks, but she just held the handkerchief tightly in her hand. After a long time, her whole body trembled and then stopped a little. On the contrary, she began to smile with relief and ease. "It's okay. In this way, I will be really alone in the future." Looking at the woman who is strong now, Mo Shanghua is moved and silent for a moment, and says, "If you want to start a new life, I can prepare a fake identity for you." Lin Xiangyin did not refuse. Unexpectedly, she agreed simply. "Okay, I accept." After a pause, she said, I just don't want to stay in the imperial city, and I don't want to be attached to you. I want to wait for you to deal with my identity, and then I want to go to other places to have a look. Now, she doesn't blame anyone. She can only blame him for the ambition of the Lin family. She meets Yin Moli, an equally ambitious wolf. The result is doomed. What Mo Shanghua said is really what she needs most now. If she refuses, she can only wait to be caught back in the patriarchal clan. And Mo Shanghua was a little relieved to see her like this and said, "In this case, I will arrange for you to be a lady of an official family. In this way, the future of life can live freely, food and clothing. Clearly is the best arrangement." But this time Lin Xiangyin shook her head and refused, whispered, "As long as the family is innocent, I just want to be an ordinary woman. Those rich life I've already experienced." Speaking of this, she couldn't help laughing at herself. Maybe this is the body of the young lady and the life of the servant girl. No, maybe I'm better than the servant girl of Lin House. Lin's house has been raided. Naturally, all her servants and servants have been sold. Naturally, she can't compare with today's one. She has a chance to come back. Thinking of this, Lin Xiangyin could not help but bring up a series of sad things in the past. Her eyes showed some sadness. He pinched the palm of his hand and scattered all the unhappy things in his mind. Lin Xiangyin stood up and bowed to the flowers on the street. "Thank you very much." After that, he straightened up and said with a relieved smile, "Everything in the past is gone now. I will live a new life. I don't blame you and hate you anymore. However, I can't say anything to wish you happiness. I hope you and I will never meet again in the future." And Mo Shanghua also stood up and raised her lips to smile. "Since you said so, I wish you and I would never meet again in the future. Everything in the world is so interesting. No matter what status and position they used to be, it's a kind of fate to be able to sit here and get together now. How can we calculate the gratitude and resentment clearly? It's better to smile and forget the gratitude and resentment." The death knell of Baorong Emperor came so fast that he died that night before Lu Zheng's half-month-old. When the death knell was introduced into the Empress Dowager's palace, the Empress Dowager, who was already seriously ill, heard that her illness worsened again and seemed to go away at any time. The palace was in a mess. The most important reason is that Emperor Baorong did not say clearly whether to make Yanbei City as a reserve or to make others. There's a case of King Yin. The princes who had some ambition for the throne were deeply afraid of Yin Beiqing's wrist. No one dared to fight for it. Even when Emperor Baorong died, they only dared to live with their tails in their hands. They were afraid that Yin Beiqing would really ascend the throne someday and settle accounts in the autumn. In front of the body of Emperor Baorong, still lying on the bed, all the ministers knelt down in front of Yin Beiqing and cried out, "The country can't be without a monarch for a day. Please, Your Highness, you inherit the great unification as soon as possible. Your Highness, King Yu, please inherit the great rule. Your Highness, King Yu, please inherit the great rule." When the voice of all the ministers came into his ears, Yin Beiqing felt very annoyed. Jun's face was tight and didn't say a word. And Mo Shanghua gently took his hand and said in a low voice, "Wait a second." Yin Beiqing nodded slightly, and a touch of heartache flashed in his eyes. What he couldn't bear most was that he had to go to the palace because of the unhealed foot injury of Mo Shanghua. He didn't know how many times he had been forced by the ministers in the past month, and there was no mood fluctuation in his heart. After pondering for a while, he came forward and said, "Before the death of my father, my favorite prince was the 13th younger brother. Now my father's body is not cold. How can I go against his will?" In the middle of the court, Emperor Baorong, who thought that he was born in Galau Station, glanced over his bed. He just swallowed his breath, and his face was full of pain. "Your Majesty likes to be the third prince, but the 13th prince is weak. He is only half a month away from government affairs and falls ill again. How can he be a great leader?" The rest of the ministers also had the same look of grief. Anyway, Yin Xinshuan was weak and not suitable for inheriting the grand unification. Now that Emperor Baorong had just died, he was too weak to come. The concubines and princes knelt on the right side. They didn't dare to interrupt the words of the ministers. They just cried in a low voice. Other people even Shu Fei is silent. One side was the cry of a group of imperial concubines and eunuchs, and the other side was the cry of the ministers. Yin Beicheng had a headache and was about to argue again, but suddenly the voice of the servant outside the hall rang out. The 13th prince arrived dash. As soon as his voice fell, he saw Yin Xinchuan walking in a hurry and flying into the palace. Regardless of all the ministers and concubines, he came forward to confirm that Emperor Baorong was really dead. Then he knelt down straight down, full of pain and sadness. "Father, my son is late dash," and buried his head tightly on the ground. The courtiers immediately hissed and looked at Yin Xinchuan, who was kneeling on the ground. He was quite surprised. Look at the appearance of the third prince just now. It seems that his life is not long. Mo Shanghua immediately raised her hand and twisted it around Yin Beicheng's waist, and then indicated with her eyes. Yin North City, this just very reluctantly, also put on a bit of heavy air, came forward to Yin Xinchuan to lift up, 13 Emperor younger brother. "I'm sorry." Yin Xinchuan raised his head with the help of Yin Beicheng, but he still knelt and didn't get up. "Thank you, brother 5. At that time, Yin Xinchuan's face was full of sadness, and his eyes were moist, but how did he look? He was not half sick, even a little healthy. Yin Beicheng seems to have expected this for a long time, not shocked. Mo Shanghua has been practicing medicine all the year round, but he is quite surprised. What's the matter? How can Yin Xinchuan's illness heal so quickly? She did not know that Yin Xinchuan had promised in Yinbei City that he had a way, as if everything had been arranged in advance. He thought that the minister just stood up and said, "The 13 princes have a ruddy complexion and a healthy figure. It's obviously normal. Who is it? It's rumored that His Highness's life will not last long." At the end of the speech, another minister stood up and said, "Since Your Highness is in good health, and Your Majesty once ordered His Highness to supervise the country before he died, the candidate for the throne should be His Highness." The rest of the ministers discussed with each other secretly. When they had Yin Xinchuan as the candidate, they realized that Yin Beicheng's temperament was rather cruel. It was Yin Xinchuan's gentle temperament that made him a benevolent king. They immediately bowed down and called out, "Your Highness, please obey Your Majesty's will, ascend the throne as soon as possible, and inherit the grand unification." Shu Fei looks up in surprise and looks at her ruddy son. She feels that something is wrong. However, due to the current situation, she doesn't know what to say. She can't help but tighten her handkerchief and looks at him. Mo Shanghua is also full of surprise. Only Yin Beicheng breathed a breath and clenched Mo Shanghua's hand. I thought Yin Xinchuan should be able to get rid of one or two, but he didn't think about it. He just turned his eyes and looked at Yin Beicheng and his wife in the street. He said in a warm voice, "Brother, I've been ordered here. If I don't want to be worried about my father, please forgive me." With that, he turned around and went to the ministers in front of him. His voice was gentle and steady. "You turn down." Shu Fei's handkerchief was suddenly pierced by her long armor. I don't know why she always felt uneasy. In a remote village near the imperial city, a list was posted in the village. Baorong Emperor died, and the whole country mourned. The man with dirty and disordered hair climbed under the list, and his handsome face was covered by his hair. When you look at it carefully, it turns out that he was the King Ling who used to be the most noble in the past. But at this time, he was just like a beggar with weak hands and feet. He just climbed in with his body. Rao was still unable to see the contents of the high list. The villager's surprise made him understand the contents of the list. He suddenly uttered a strange cry, then laughed and murmured, "My father is dead. I'm going to be the emperor. I'm going to be the emperor." The villagers, disgusted to avoid and scolded, "Madman." Yin Xinchuan finally became emperor, surrounded by all the ministers. However, in the meantime, the funeral, which lasted for 3 months, has to be handled. In the past 3 months, in addition to the imperial concubines, princesses and princesses, The ministers and the wives of the imperial court have to go to the palace to watch the spirit and worship. They have to endure for 3 months before they can bury Baorong Emperor's body. It's okay for others, but Imo Shanghua is still pregnant and kneels all day long. Yin Beicheng is afraid that she can't bear it, so he can't bear the charge of being unfilial. He asks Yin Xinchuan for the imperial edict so that she can kneel down less and often take a rest. During this period, Yin Xinchuan was also very busy. The Empress Dowager is seriously ill, and he has no wife. So many things have to be blamed on him alone. There is only a limited amount of help that Xu Fei can do, so he is very busy. Imo Shanghua doesn't have the chance to see him. Lu Zheng is also out of the palace after Baorong Emperor worked overtime. She has been staying in the palace for 3 months and has no chance to ask Yin Xinchuan about his illness. She had asked Yin Beicheng in private, and Yin Beicheng was also at a loss. This thought in the heart of doubt for a few days, but soon no such mood. The first 3 months of her baby's life were pretty good, but after March, the daily pregnancy, vomiting, and all kinds of discomfort never stopped. Her stomach became bigger and bigger day by day, and it was more and more inconvenient to kneel down. However, the funeral period could not be avoided in any case. After suffering for 3 months, Baorong Emperor was finally buried, and Yin Xinchuan officially became emperor. At that time, Mo Shanghua was 6 months pregnant, and her belly was 2 fists higher than her foot. However, she was not as mobile as an ordinary woman. For those 3 months, she had to worship every day, and she often felt sick during pregnancy and vomiting. Mo Shanghua only felt that she was more grinding than before when she practiced martial arts every day. Therefore, her body seems to be better than that of normal pregnant women. Even after standing for a long time, she won't feel lumbago. Rao is so. Yin Beicheng is still distressed. Only feel ashamed of the flowers on the street, day by day, are carefully waiting. Originally, after the new emperor ascended the throne, the other vassal kings had already left for the vassal area, but their couple had to stay here because they were old. King Yu's house has been renovated, but Mo Shanghua prefers this small house. They stay here for a while. They can go back to Yuzhou to live happily after Mo Shanghua gives birth. Now it has been closed in recent years, and the weather has been excellent in recent days. Mo Shanghua holds his back with one hand and caresses his high belly with the other hand, like a cat who has fallen asleep, squinting lazily. The thick long eyelashes of Pu Fan cast a light green shadow at the moment, and the full and ruddy lips are more like fresh cherries. Qinya saw that Mo Shanghua went out of the house alone and hurriedly went to help her. "Princess, you don't call me a slave when you get up. If you have a mistake, the Lord will surely kill me." Hua Shui's eyes on the street blinked, glanced at Mo Ling in the corridor, and said with a smile, "It's clear that you left your little husband and ignored me. Now I'm blamed." Qinya's white and tender cheek was like a cooked crab, embarrassed and annoyed. "Princess, what are you talking about? I'm just grateful for Brother Mo's help." Mo Ling in the corridor seems to have heard the conversation between the master and the servant. A wooden face softens 3 points and looks at Qinya with eyes full of spoiling. "What kind of gentleman? Qinya, don't take the king's princess ill." Just then, he heard Yin Beicheng's smiling voice. Qinya immediately covered her face and ran away. "I don't have a maid. It's the princess who teases me. Since you don't trust me, you'd better take care of the princess yourself." Say a slip of smoke then arrived Mo Ling's side. Red face pulls him to want to go. Just out of the distance, Qinya's exclamation came again. "Brother, how did you come back? Not, how did you come back? The barracks are fine today." "Hey, brother, what are you doing, brother?" Listening to the noise outside, the eyebrows on the street stretch out, and the old quiet eyes are full of smiles. Such a day is really pleasant. Mo dash. Yin Beicheng has already stood in front of Mo Shanghua with a negative hand. He clearly looks so cold in front of others. Now, when he comes to her, he blinks his eyes and looks aggrieved. Mo Shanghua was both funny and helpless. He said with a smile, Your Highness, King Yu, who is famous for killing people like hemp, is it not funny that you are like this now? However, in just a few months, Yin Beiqing's image has changed from a notorious Lord Ugly to a ruthless King Yu. Before and after, it seems that it is just the difference between yesterday and today. Yin North City does not think lightly, does not care at all. This king cherishes love. Imperial concubine can only be a good word. How can make a person joke? With that, he suddenly takes out his hands behind him like a juggler, and a large cluster of bright roses suddenly bumps into the eyes of flowers on the street. She looked at the enchanting roses with astonishment. She couldn't believe that the flowers from the 21st century would appear here. Yin Bei City, where did you get from? The flowers on the street took that bunch of roses, and some water flashed in their eyes. When did she shed tears in front of others? With a smile, Yin Beiqing helped Emo Shanghua to enter the house. He helped her to take off her thick cloak and pluck the charcoal basin. With a proud face, "It's not difficult for me. If you still want it, there are many more for you to pick." Emo Shanghua took one out of it and put it on her nose to smell it. It was really fragrant and intoxicating. "I only said it once, and you were so attached to it. It's winter in you." What she said, but no matter how much she said, she was dumb at this time, and 1,000 words were stuck in her throat. This rose is common in the 21st century, but how can the world have it? She really can't imagine how he got it. Yin Beiqing smiles and gently pinches her mellow face. "I'm not here to make you unhappy. If I don't smile, I'm sorry for the large amount of money I spent in Japan." The flowers on the street pursed their lips and finally laughed. Her face was cold and indifferent, and now she laughed like this, only several times more beautiful than the rose in front of her. Yin Beiqing was filled with great satisfaction and happiness. He put his ear on the protruding belly of Emo Shanghua and said with a smile, "Now you're the only one who is short of this little villain in your stomach." Emo Shanghua clenched his hand with a smile. They clasped their fingers. Her voice was light and gentle. "In the future, I only want to be with you so long." Yin North City, Yu Tong light flashed for a while, clenched her soft Su hand. "I will always be with you." The sun is shining high and the wind is warm. But in the blink of an eye, for months passed in a hurry. Emo Shanghua was 9.5 months pregnant, but now she is still walking around in the hospital with a big belly. As she said, "It's for better production." She is the best doctor. Yin Beiqing naturally believes her words. As soon as it's warm in spring, she helps her to walk around every day. Even Qinya is relaxed every day. As long as Yin Beiqing is there, she can be lazy. But now Emo Shanghua month big, she also dare not walk around at will. Oneself in the mansion arrest, also want to arrest Emo Ling together in the mansion. As for Hua Qianlu and Nanhe, Hua Qianlu doesn't like to be restrained, so he takes Nanhe to travel all over the world. He often sends back some new small things, which is very comfortable and interesting. Emo Shanghua holds her waist and abdomen with one hand and plays with a Japanese-style shoe similar to the one made of 20th century lace. She says with a smile, "These shoes are lovely, but they are for girls. I don't know men and women in my stomach now." As a matter of fact, with the medical skill of Emo Shanghua, we can judge the male and female for a long time. However, since her fetal image was stable, she almost never felt her own pulse. She was afraid that she might accidentally diagnose a man or a woman. She just wanted to let it go. Yin Beiqing cautiously held the flowers on the street. Hearing the words, he could not help but curl his mouth. "What's so nice about this thing? I see. Even a girl should wear bright and beautiful clothes to be charming and lovely." After a pause, he said, "This thing must not be selected by the willows. Otherwise, according to Hua Qianliu's character, he would choose a red and purple one." Emo Shanghua wanted to raise his hand to twist Yin Beiqing. As soon as he moved his hand, he felt some pain on his waist. He couldn't take it away, so he just looked at him angrily. You know what? Although the look is exquisite, the pattern is the most exquisite. Moreover, even if you really find colorful ones for you, you're afraid to say that they are extremely vulgar. Yin North City lightly hums a full face of proud jiao of color. My son, these things naturally should I prepare personally. Imo Shanghua turns her eyes and takes a look at him. As a new mother, Imo Shanghua's face seems to be more mature than before. Only this one eye, then saw Yin Beiching body and mind rippling, but she had such a big stomach in front of her body, it made him feel like cat claws. The flower on the street looks clearly. The corner of lips knocks gently, deliberately ignores, continues to walk forward. But after walking slowly for a little time, she couldn't bear it. She stopped walking, her red lips slightly opened, and kept breathing deeply. Seeing this, Yin Beiching helped her to sit down in the corridor first, but just after touching the chair, the eyebrows of Imo Shanghua frowned tightly again. He covered his bulging belly with his hands and said, "It hurts, Yin Beicheng, it hurts." Yin Beicheng had never seen Imo Shanghua like this before. He was shocked and cried eagerly. "Does it hurt? Are you going to have a baby soon? Come on, please go and invite Wunpa, but so you say I time, abdominal pain will suddenly increase. Pain on her forehead has been sweating, tightly bite the lip, can barely cry out." CMO Shanghua, so painful appearance. Yin Beiching's heart also seems to be tightly pulled into a ball. Busy clenched Imo Shanghua's hand, let her try to relax in his arms. "I am more. Don't be afraid, I am here." He had tried to control himself to make his voice sound a little calm, but his trembling vocal cords couldn't hide from the stranger. But at this time, she did not have the strength to comfort Yin Beicheng. The pain in her abdomen was aggravated with the passage of time. She suddenly felt a sudden warmth in her lower body, extending along the inner thigh to the lower leg. Imo Shanghua bit her lips and said, "Sheep, the amniotic fluid is broken." Chinya Mo Ling, who is far away, hears this sentence as soon as he comes here. He is in a panic and goes down to find Wunpa in a hurry. But in the blink of an eye, the courtyard is in a mess. Until Imo Shanghua lay on the bed, Yin Beicheng still held her hand. Here seems to hear a few Wunpa repeatedly dissuade Yin Beicheng to go out, hear ominous voice, but Imo Shanghua never feel that hands at a moment of relaxation. The pain in her abdomen was very painful. She thought it was the limit at the beginning, but she didn't expect that the pain tortured her for 3 hours. Every half an hour, the pain became more and more painful. It's more painful than a few arrows. It's 100 times more painful than suturing a wound without anesthetics. It's very clear that she's just at the entrance of the palace, and it's not the time of real production. Even so, the pain is still there. At that time, she was awkwardly obedient to Wunpa's instructions, lying on the bed. Her whole face was very pale, her hair was soaked with sweat, and her lips were almost bleeding. Yin Beicheng did not let go of her hand for a moment. He saw all her pain in his eyes, and his heart was the same pain. His eyes were full of blood, and the hand shaking gently. "Amor, you need to come on. I will always accompany you." For the first time in his life, Yin Beicheng's mind is blank, and he can't even say a complete word. He really didn't know how to relieve the pain of Imo Shanghua. He simply put his arm to her lips and said, "Imo, if you can't bear the pain, you will bite my hand." The flowers on the street are almost unconscious of the pain, but they still turn their heads. Chinya hastily brought the ginseng soup, red eyes looking at Yin Beicheng, who occupied the position in front of the bed. "Lord, give the princess some ginseng soup." Yin North City ordered a nod. A hand while Imo Shanghua helped up, while ginseng soup to her lips. Imo Shanghua didn't know much about it. He just drank a few mouthfuls by instinct and began to cough. Yin Beicheng married Shintang and threw it to Chinya. He wiped off the water stains on her lips, put her back on the bed, clenched her hand again, and looked at the busy Wunpa. "What's the matter?" Wunpa squatted down and looked at it carefully. Then she looked up and said in a hurry, "It's almost done. Please continue to breathe deeply and exert yourself." Deep breath. Hard, ma'am." In a daze, it seems that the words in the ear of Imo Shanghua are replaced by such words. However, In that scene, there is no Yin Beicheng who is unwilling to leave at any time, just a busy woman and maid. Such a situation seems to be in the past, and it seems to be in the present, so that Mo Shanghua can hardly tell whether it is the imagination or the present reality, but only Wunpa's guidance is surprisingly consistent. She just instinctively takes deep breath again and again according to Wunpa's words. At midnight, Mo Shanghua raised her head and cried out in great pain. Something suddenly slipped out of her body. Her nerves were weak at this time, and her head fell back on the pillow, unconscious. In a trance, she seemed to hear Wunpa holding her child and asking for a reward with a smile. "Congratulations, master. You are 1,000 gold. Well, let's call it Cloud Dance." The man looked at the child in Wunpa's hand, a little disappointed. "Congratulations, little Prince Yushiwe is lovely and very similar to the princess." Wunpa holds the child who has been washed clean and comes to Yin Beicheng with a happy face. Yin North City turn him out to see one eye. Then the vision falls back to at the moment sleepy, don't wake up of Mo Shanghua body, voice hoarse. "Take down first, let the nurse look at." Wunpa didn't expect that Yin Beicheng didn't have such a cold attitude, and she couldn't believe it. Chinya, with her red and swollen eyes, went forward to look at the child and took out a heavy purse from her arms. "It's hard for Mammy. The nurse is in the room over there. I'll take you there." Mo Shanghua has finished production, and the house has been tidied up. Lu Zheng, who has been guarding the door, is able to come in. After helping Mo Shanghua pass the pulse, he says, "She's just overconsumed. Take a rest, and she'll wake up soon." Said, "I have ordered people to boil medicine first. She has no other disease. You don't have to worry too much." Yin Beicheng didn't open his mouth. He just nodded slightly. He held the hand of Mo Shanghua in both hands. He refused to let go. The blood of Yutong didn't dissipate, but it became more and more. Now there was a green shadow. "You've had it all day and night. If you don't take a rest first, she won't wake up for a moment." Seeing this, Lu Zheng gently comforted him. Yin Beicheng is silent, eyes always fixed on the pale face of flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua, who was asleep, seemed to feel Yin Beicheng's worry. Her eyebrows frowned slightly, her lips opened slightly, and she said, "Cloud Dance." Lu Zheng couldn't really hear it. He just looked at Yin Beicheng helplessly. "Let me see how the medicine is boiled first." Then he retreated. At that time, Yin Beicheng, whose face was the same, suddenly crossed the dark color in his eyes and drew his ears closer. The fashion of Mo Shanghua is sleeping, but it has been unconsciously whispering, "Cloud Dance, where are you? Cloud Dance." Yin Beicheng's face has completely changed. His quiet eyes are like ink, and slowly spread a very deep and unpredictable ink. He looked at the flowers on the street for a long time, and suddenly raised his right hand. There was no Dharma seal in his hand, but it slowly condensed a layer of pale gold light. Then he slowly put his hand on her forehead, and the pale golden light magnified a circle. But in a moment, the flower on the street was quiet again, and he closed his eyes and fell asleep. The light in Yin Beicheng's palm dissipated, and he held her hand again. There was a bit of fatigue between her eyebrows and eyes. "Mo, it's not that I don't want you to miss you, but now is not the time. When the time comes, I will accompany you to look for it," said. He bowed his head, extremely gentle on the white forehead of the flower, gently kiss. After a full day's sleep, Mo Shanghua woke up. The pain on her body had completely disappeared, and her stomach was shriveled, but her chest was heavy, as if she was oppressed by something. Shilo Mao sees past, was originally carelessly fell asleep Yin Beicheng. Mo Shanghua raised his hand and gently stroked his forehead and hair, and his lips began to smile. Yin Beicheng seemed very tired. He didn't wake up by her actions. He still fell asleep quietly, breathing steadily and evenly. Chinya also fell asleep on the table beside her. The flower on the street didn't make a sound, but she seemed to have a sense of what it was like to wake up. Seeing that the flower on the street had already woken up, she suddenly woke up completely. Princess, you are awake. I'm worried about you. Although Qin Yaping is also a person with delicate mind, the surprise at this time makes her completely forget Yin Beicheng, who is still sleeping. Therefore, Yin Beicheng suddenly woke up, and a pair of bloody faces suddenly appeared in front of the flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua caresses Yin Beicheng's eyebrows, and his voice is also hoarse. How can you become like this? However, one day and one night, Yin Beicheng's eyes were full of blood, his chin was covered with black stubble, and his hair was messy, as if he were a despondent king. Why on earth did he become like this? If you know who you are, you will feel even worse. Yin Beicheng pulled out a smile, gently grabbed her hand, gently kissed. You do not wake up, I will not have a moment to be at ease. Qin has also been working hard these 2 days. Yin Beicheng is depressed about Mo Shanghua, and she doesn't want to leave for a moment. Naturally, she wants a maid Wenpa to take care of Mo Shanghua. She is also very tired at the moment. Mo Ling has been guarding the outer room. Now also came in, said, since the princess wakes up, then Qin will go back with me to have a rest. Qin nodded. She was so tired that she said with a smile to the flower in the street, the Lord hasn't left you for a moment these days. Finished saying, then quickly carrying to skirt to go out with Mo Ling together. One is knowing that Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng must have a lot to say at the moment. The other is that she is really tired. Qin Lin is in the military camp. He wants to come in and have a look at the latest news, but Qin Yigang turns him out as soon as he comes out and asks him to wait for his child to come at the full moon. At that time, there were only 2 people in the house, Yin Beicheng and Mo Shanghua. Mo Shanghua was distressed by Yin Beicheng. She touched her flat abdomen with the other hand and said, where's the child? Is it a boy or a girl? As soon as I wake up, I think about my children. Yin North City, full of resentment, glanced at the flowers on the street, but still raised his voice. Come on, bring the child in. Qin is not there. There are other maidservants outside the door. After a while, the nurse will hold the baby in her arms. Under the guidance of Wenpa, Mo Shanghua hugs the child. The child in her arms is tightly wrapped and shows a little red face. Her hand is bigger than before. Now she sleeps soundly with her eyes closed. She can't see whether it is beautiful or ugly. Clearly still can't see the beauty and ugliness, but the nanny said with a smile, the little son is born more like a princess, and he must be a handsome young man in the future. Yin North City lightly hums quite discontented. No matter who Xiao looks like, toss her mother like this. In the future, I want to drill him well. Mo Shanghua was holding the child in her arms. Her eyebrows and eyes were soft, and her lips were smiling. I thought it would be a daughter, but I didn't expect it to be such a tossing boy. Boys, too. By the way, have you ever thought of a name? Well, I thought about that a few months ago. Although the child was in great pain, Yin Beicheng looked forward to the child with their blood and bone from the bottom of his heart and said, it's called Sizhou. What do you think? Yin Sizhou. The flower on the street drooped her eyes and whispered softly. Looking at the child sleeping sweetly in her arms, the corner of her lip involuntarily gently pulled up. Okay, that's what you said. It's called Sizhou. Seeing that the eyebrows on the street are so gentle, Yin Beicheng can't help but gather around and look at Yin Sizhou together. The little man seemed to feel the deep love and concern of his parents. At this time, he fell asleep and opened his eyes. His obsidian eyes rolled and his mouth grinned. Yin North City, originally intended to plate up the face, also showed a smile. 2 nights a day, did not sleep army ant swept away. Mo's son, you see, this child's mouth eyes like you. Just now, also a pair of unwilling to see a second more appearance. How now say the words also with nanny as irrelevant. The flowers on the street are funny and speechless. Soon they are attracted by the little boat in their arms. They just look at them and love them. They will never let go again. Shortly after Beirandi's death, banquets are not allowed in the city for half a year. Therefore, Zayasizu's full moon ceremony only invites 2 people's friends. Mo Shanghua is a person who can't stay idle. I'm afraid that an ordinary woman even has to lie on the bed at this time, but she got down early. Now, she is sitting in the hall with her child in her arms. The cool color between her eyebrows and eyes has completely faded, and her eyes are full of soft smile. Xiao Xizhou is now full term. She is not red and white. She is very fat and white. Her face is less than the size of a palm, and her flesh is almost down to her chin. Her eyes are dark, smart, and good-looking. Ordinary children are not sensible at this time. When others hold them, they will cry. This little boat is a good-natured child. When someone wants to hold them, they all grin and smile happily, which is very attractive. Hui Qianliu and Nanhe received the news as early as when they were about to give birth in Moshang. They just came back from Xinghua recently. At this time, the South Crane learned the appearance of flowers on the street, carefully holding the small boat, like two eyes are about to bubble. Too cute, you see. He saw everyone smile. Let me see. Flower Willow smell speech. Also, quite interested to come forward to have a look. Zayasizu seems to have made sense. When she saw the flowers and willows, she was more happy with her smile. The meat on her cheeks was piled together, which was very lovely. Hua Qianlu took the folding fan away from his waist, stretched out his hand to the South Crane, and said, "You see, he obviously likes me better. Let me hug you." Then he took a look at Mo Shanghua. Before Mo Shanghua spoke, Yin Beiqing patted his hand directly. He said coldly, "If you want to hold me, I will give birth to one." Flower Thousand Willow curled his lips, extremely discontented of shout. "I say, North City elder brother, how you so stingy? Others all hold. Why can't hold?" South Crane lifted Mao to stare to spend 1,000 willows one eye. Reproach away. "You so unsteady. In case fell child again, how?" Hua Qianlu is very unconvinced. He thinks that he can hold a child without looking at it. But he says, "I just want to hold a child. Can I still hold a 7-foot man?" On this matter, Yin Beiqing has a strong say. At the beginning, he began to think of flowers and willows, but later he tried to hold them. But no matter how he held them, Zayasizu would laugh when he saw people, but he was crying bitterly in his arms and was rejected by many strangers. However, he was determined not to admit it, so he directly dragged Hua Qianlu to one side. "A group of women's affairs. You 7-foot men join in the fun. Go quickly." Mo Lingqin and Lin Luzheng looked at each other and followed. It's not good for them to stay here for a long time. South Crane and hold tease for a while, then returned to Mo Shanghua, exclaimed, "You really are good luck. Even the children are so lovely." Qinya is very proud to pick eyebrows, as if he is the child's mother in general. That's natural. Our little son with the princess, the body can be worried about it. Xiao Xizhou seemed to understand Qinya's words. He was so excited that he stretched out his little fist and waved it in the air. The meat on his arm trembled. The flower hearts on the street all seemed to melt in general, and the cool eyebrows and eyes softened down because of the child. He says with a smile, "No matter who you are always lovely. I also like it very much." Qinya also laughed and teased. "Anyway, this little boat will grow up in the future, and it must be a small evil that will bring disaster to the country and the people." As he teased, then he raised his head and said, "Look what you said. It's like you were born. If not, would you like to have a baby earlier?" Qinya flushed with a smile and stamped her feet angrily. "You're talking nonsense again. You wait. I will tear your mouth." Then he rolled his sleeve and came forward. The South Crane slightly raised the chin, pretty light pick. "Are you sure?" Qinya swallowed her saliva silently. Before she spoke, the flower on the street released a hand and pulled her arm down. She said solemnly, "Those who know current affairs are heroes." Qinya hurriedly Shuanpazayalv, hummed, and hid toward the flowers on the street. "I don't have the same opinion with you." There is a harmonious and relaxed atmosphere in the hall. The Empress Dowager arrives. The shrill voice of the maid suddenly rings out. Mo Shanghua gives the baby to the nurse for the time being and goes out of the hall to greet Yin Beicheng and others. Today's Empress Dowager is naturally the former lady. Empress Dowager Wan Fu Jinan. All the people cried out. After Xu Fei became the Empress Dowager, Yin Xinchuan was extremely filial to her and naturally led a smooth life. However, she was still an easygoing and dignified person in the past and did not think highly of herself. All of them are flat. The mourners are here today to celebrate. They don't have to be restrained. The Empress Dowager was smiling, and her attitude towards the people was very peaceful. All of them got up, and the nurse also came to the Empress Dowager with Zayasizu in her arms. Unexpectedly, the Empress Dowager hugged her baby in person. She looked at the white and chubby little boat in her arms and loved it from the bottom of her heart. Her eyes and eyebrows were all smiling. This little guy is really cute, but he has been wronged, and the New Year's feast can't be held wantonly. The flower on the street led her lips to smile and said, "It's enough to have 3 or 5 good friends and all the relatives and neighbors like now. In this imperial city, even if it is a big operation, it invites more than half of the courtiers to come. Even if it is a beautiful city, it has to do everything to be complacent. Isn't it rather tiring and vexing?" The rest are not as comfortable as they are. Yin Beiqing obviously had the same idea, but Xu Fei was also an outsider in front of him. She didn't get close to him, so she didn't interrupt. The Empress Dowager held Zayasizu and teased him for a while. She put a pair of red gold Kirin 100-year-old bracelets on his little wrist. Then she handed the baby back to the nanny and said with a smile, "This is a gift from the AI family. The emperor is busy with government affairs and can't come, so his gift will be sent by the AI family." Then he took a pair of red gold and jade inlaid rui from the female official behind him. The emperor hoped that Zayasizu would have all the best in the future and be safe all the year round. Yin Beicheng took it on behalf of him and bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for your kindness. No need to be polite." The Empress Dowager was just as easygoing to Yin Beicheng. "I don't know when you're going to get up and go to the vassal area for such a small boat. In the past 6 months, other vassals have been going to the vassal area one after another. Yin Xinchuan is gentle and magnanimous. Even King N, who was demoted to be the princess, has been pardoned and allowed to go to the vassal area." Now the only vassal who had not set out for the vassal area was Yin Beicheng and his wife. The Empress Dowager didn't say this out of malice. Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng looked at each other and said, "I have already discussed with the Lord. After the Dragon Boat Festival, I will leave for Yuzhou." "You don't have to go back to Yuzhou." No one thought that the Empress Dowager would answer like this. Everyone was surprised, but did not think the Empress Dowager just a meal after a moment, and then said, "King and had a conspiracy. The emperor punished Yuzhou to him. As for you, go to Huayang. The title remains unchanged, still known as King Yu." Huayang. Huayang is located in the south of the Yangtze River. Although it is not as rich as the south of the Yangtze River, it is also a peaceful and rich place, which is many times better than Yuzhou. However, if so, Mo Shanghua Yin Beicheng's previous business in Yuzhou would have to start all over again. Yin Beicheng and Mo Shanghua looked at each other, then bowed down and said, "Thank you for your kindness." The Empress Dowager went up to help them and told them something about Huayang. She left them all the time on the pretext that everything in the palace was complicated. With the good news brought by the Empress Dowager, everyone was happy for the flowers on the street in Yanbei City, not limited to men and women. They directly set up a big round table, sat down together, drank and laughed. This full moon banquet is not a big event, but for Zayasizu, it is the best to have the blessing of her parents, friends, and relatives. Even Mo, Shanghua, and Yanbei City drank 2 more cups today, all of which were slightly drunk. Yin Beicheng walked a little wobbly. He simply leaned half of his body against Yin Beicheng's arms and walked very hard. Although Yin Beicheng had never drunk in front of Mo Shanghua, his drinking capacity was excellent. At present, his consciousness was clear, his eyes were bright, and he didn't look half drunk. Mo Shanghua staggered against his arms and took 2 steps. He directly picked her up and took her back to the room. Chinya has drunk too much wine today, so she can't come to serve her. Yin Beiqing combs her and puts her on the bed. The drunken flowers on the street are not as cool as they used to be. Their cheeks are white and red, and their bodies smell of wine. Now they are sleeping sweetly with their eyes closed. Yin Beiqing's playful heart is dead. She can't help raising her hand and gently touching her upper eyelashes, which are just like the flowers on the street. Her long eyelashes quiver and her ruddy lips pout. Light aroma of wine. Yinbei's city will be quietly. Jean was pulled up. In this way, she had only one eye. Yin Beiqing pursed his lips, turned his back, and slept with the flowers on the street. It's hard to sleep all night. In the middle of the night, when I was sleeping, I was always honest and clever. Suddenly, I kicked the quilt and woke up. Yin Beiqing turned around in the middle of the night and just fell asleep. He was awakened by her movements. He looked at her dimly with green shadows in his eyes. What's the matter? But is it hot? Most of the time in the middle of the night, Mo Shanghua sat upright on the bed, the quilt kicked to the foot. At the moment, she seems to have sobered up and also seems to be unconscious. Her eyes are staring at the foot of the bed, and she suddenly says, "Where's the boat?" Yin Beiqing sobered up, covered his tired and aching head, and said, "I think the boat is naturally with the nurse." "Good, it's time to go to bed." Say, stretch out one's hand to then take the flower on the Mo into one's self-bosom. But Mo Shanghua got up from his arms and lay on the bed. She was flustered and lost her calm. "I just dreamt that the boat was gone." Yan Beiqing endures sleepy. A hand gently rubbed her forehead, low voice way. "I just saw, think boat, is very good, who's sweet, also did not cry." As soon as the voice fell, a baby's cry came from far and near. Then, the nurse's voice was full of melancholy. "Princes and concubines, the little prince is crying more than ever, and a maidservant can't coax him well." Mo Shanghua immediately sat up, got up, and went to open the door to tell Xiao Xizhou to come. Knowing that she was still sober, Yin Beiqing did not dare to let her hold the baby. He quickly got up with a headache and carried the boat in. Xia Sizu is still discontented when he is held by Yan Beiqing. He weeps pitifully with his little mouth. His dark eyes are always staring at the flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua seems to be awake a lot. She raises her hand and hugs Xiao Xizhou with a soft voice. As soon as Xiao Xizhou arrived in her arms, she wanted to have milk. She drank wine. How could she feed it? Yin Beiqing had no choice but to have a headache and hold Xia Sizu. Xia Sizu, who was always clever, cried for half an hour. Finally, he would not sleep until he was held by a stranger. After tossing about for nearly a night, Yinbei City had a full sleep for the first time and only woke up the next day. Mo Shanghua is already sober. She probably remembers something about yesterday and gets up early to practice and eat. Only when Yin Beiqing wakes up, she brings lunch to make amends. However, she never showed weakness in front of Yin Beiqing. At the moment, she didn't know how to coax him. She just gave him food and said, "Come on, have a meal." Yinbei City, now green shadow, is particularly thick. Now looking at someone so perfunctory attitude, snort, put down the chopsticks. Mo Shanghua looked at him with a puzzled look and frowned. "You haven't eaten since morning. Aren't you hungry?" Yin Beiqing was almost killed by the strange words. He could not help but said, "Of course I'm hungry. I just have a headache from my husband. I don't have the strength to carry chopsticks." Mo Shanghua turned to ask Chinya for a spoon and put in the bowl in front of him. "In this case, use the spoon first. Don't worry, you just have too little sleep. After lunch, you can sleep for a while. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.